Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show, the final edition of the regular season. 13 games on the docket today. Just me and Mike Gallagher, as Justin Fanton has his hands full updating news and information for Underdog on this slate, where the news and information keeps changing pretty rapidly. So we've got a lot to cover in today's show. As a programming reminder, we will not be doing shows next week for the play-in games. We will resume doing shows the following week once we get into the series in the first round of the playoffs. And we will go, as we get deeper into the playoffs, with the normal content Monday through Friday. But next week we'll be taking off during the play-in games. So just to get that out of the way, I'll remind everybody at the end as well for expectations. Mike, I don't even know if I need to ask how you are. I think we're all defeated and broken and ready to be done with this NBA regular season. But if you have any other comments or adjectives to describe how you're feeling today, feel free to let the people know.
Yeah, doing good. I think I Mikal Bridges it. I think I made every injury show on the season. So shout out to me. But yeah, man, ready for the playoffs. This last week was, as someone who likes chaos for fantasy, this has not been fun. But we got chaos today, so let's get to it.
Yeah, you have your PowerPoint presentation up with the teams with incentives for today. The teams that have pretty clear incentives, Pelicans, Warriors, Lakers, those teams all kind of competing to avoid the play-in and get into the playoffs in the Western Conference. Then after that, it gets very questionable. In the some incentive to win category, we've got the Heat, but the Heat are resting Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo tonight. We've got the Hawks and the Raptors, the Eastern Conference teams. We've got the Grizzlies, whose magic number to lock up the number 2 seed is 1. So they need 1 win or 1 Kings loss. So we have the Kings there too, but the Grizzlies play 2 hours before the Kings. And if they're well ahead in that game, the Kings might not have any incentive to play. So they could quickly drop from this tier. And then the Nets and Heat, the magic number there is 1 for either a Heat loss or a Nets win for the Nets to lock up the 6th seed. So once again, they play at similar times, so not as big of an ordeal, but the Heat resting everybody. I still think Brooklyn's going to play everybody, but the Heat resting everybody, could make it so that Brooklyn is not playing their guys massive minutes, especially with Orlando, who they're playing, in question on who they're playing. Incentive to lose: Rockets, Pacers, Wizards, Bucks, Knicks, Bulls, Suns. And no incentive at all: Hornets, Pistons, 76ers, Celtics, Nets. Mixed incentives: the Mavs, who still have a chance at making the playoffs, but are resting Kyrie Irving due to injury management, along with Josh Green, Maxi Kleber, Tim Hardaway Jr. And the nuances of this, which we talked about last show with Dallas, where I had a little bit of concern, was simply that they don't control. They keep their pick if it's top 10. It's a top 10 protected pick in the first round. Otherwise, it goes to the Knicks. They're currently tied for 10th place after the win last game with the Chicago Bulls. They are playing the Chicago Bulls tonight. So if they win, they would move to 11th place, and they would improve or keep their hopes alive of playing on Sunday to get into the playoffs with a win and an Oklahoma City loss. So they're looking at things, I guess, now as since OKC won last night, it's increasingly less likely that they're actually going to be able to pull this off. And since they're playing an opponent that is directly tied with them for this spot, which, as a reminder, if they go into the draft lottery with the 10th pick in the draft and none of the 4 teams behind them hit the lottery in terms of getting into the top 4, they keep the pick. If they are 11th, they now have to hit the lottery themselves to get into the top 4. And so you can see the odds of them getting into the top 4 are 11%, 10, 11%, something like that, right? So it's either a 10% chance of keeping your pick or something around 85% chance of keeping your pick based on whether they win or lose this game. So the stakes are high for keeping a top 10 pick, which you would think would be important. But obviously they traded assets to get Kyrie Irving and try to make the playoffs this year. So it's a messy situation. Any other notes to add on the incentives tonight, Mike?
Oh, no, you laid it out nicely. The Bulls went from incentivized to win to incentivized to lose. Is the only thing I would add. It's pretty funny that they were playing for stuff, they clinched it, and now it'd be better to lose now, which is pretty funny and it pretty much sums up this time of year.
And because the way that the lotto balls are decided, right, is that as long as you lose in the play-in, it doesn't matter where you lose in the
Right.
play-in, correct? It's your regular season record that takes
Yep.
precedent in terms of your lotto balls. So if the Bulls lose their last two games and finish 38 and 44 and are tied for the 10th spot, even if they win a play-in game and then lose, they're still tied for the 10th spot in the lotto balls and in the odds. The only thing that would change is if they won and got into the playoffs, and then they would move in outside of the lottery. Is my understanding. Is that correct?
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, the
All right.
Dallas stuff is fascinating. We'll get to that, but quite wild that we'll talk about Luka and stuff. But let's get to it.
All right, let's get to game by game stuff. Let's start with Pistons and Pacers. On the Pistons side of things, Marvin Bagley back listed probable. So we talked about how this could be something that would happen with Detroit because they have absolutely nothing to play for at this point in time. Still out, Bojan Bogdanovic, Alec Burks, Cade Cunningham, Hamidou Diallo, Rodney McGruder, Isaiah Stewart, questionable tags on Isaiah Livers and Eugene Omiori. We've seen a ton of Jalen Duren and James Weissman overlap in the absence of Marvin Bagley. We saw very little of it when they had Marvin Bagley. I guess that's my biggest question mark first is, do you think we still see some more of this Duren Weissman overlap even with Bagley back in the mix? And what would your minutes expectations be for Marvin Bagley returning with a probable tag from concussion protocol?
Yeah, so one thing, concussion probable tags are a little iffy. I would put them a little closer to questionable. We've seen a lot of guys get that tag and still wait one more to return. So just that. And then I think the Eugene Omiuri, who rolled his ankle, it looked pretty minor. He rolled it like a little bit, and the trainer was looking at him on the bench, didn't take his shoe off, and then went back, didn't start. So I think that's a factor too. So it wouldn't be surprising, honestly, if they start big with the two centers and then put basically Bagley in the backup center role, backup both roles, right? And fit minutes in that way. So I think the Omiuri factor is a big piece of this. On top of Isaiah Livers, who rolled his ankle again. I mean, this guy has the old version of Steph Curry ankles in this situation. So I think there's a lot of factors at play here. But if everyone's in, then I still kind of think they would probably start Bagley next to Weissman and then running a little bit of overlap. So we're talking probably upper 20s minutes for the two centers.
Okay, yeah, because I was going to say, basically the last few games we've been projecting Jalen Duren, and obviously they've been without Bagley and Livers, which is, as you alluded to, is a big deal. And then Omiori missed time in the last game, but we've been projecting Duren for like low 30s minutes, and then the games when Bagley was back before, we had Duren like low 20s minutes. So it's a really big gap in terms of where we've been projecting him relative to Bagley, and wanted to cover whether you thought there would still be overlap there, because I think that's an important part of evaluating Detroit and their value on this slate. Okay, let's get to the Indy side of things. Tyrese Halliburton's still out. Chris Duarte's still out. The effing Miles Turner questionable tag is still here. And Indy, this is so obscene. This is the fourth or fifth game in a row. He's been questionable all day. Then he gets ruled out at 5:30. It happens like clockwork. In addition to his questionable tag, there's a questionable tag on Jalen Smith and TJ McConnell. Perhaps, and Gabe York, who's a two-way contract, who did get a look last game. Yeah. Perhaps the Miles Turner thing is tied to Jalen Smith, but they have plenty of bigs. Unless like Daniel Tyson them just have an agreement that he's like done playing for the season. They have plenty of bigs. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the questionable tags for Jalen Smith, TJ McConnell, and Miles Turner tonight?
I hate it. So let's start with what we know. We know Isaiah Jackson's starting. It's his turn. These questionable tags don't matter. He's going to start today. I feel pretty confident about that. I don't have started jerseys to back it up, though. We know Gabe York's playing. TJ McConnell, a couple other players, including Rick Carlisle, said he's going to play. He's got 2 games left on his prorated two-way deal. 2 games left. He's going to play. He's probably going to play in TJ McConnell, his U of A buddy's spot. I'm expecting TJ McConnell to sit and Gabe pick up most of his minutes He has a big opportunity coming, according to Rick Carlisle. So I'm expecting probably like low 20s minutes on Gabe York. What don't we know? So this Jalen Smith wrench that's being thrown in this situation, maybe Miles Turner plays, maybe they both don't play, and then maybe Daniel Tice does come into the mix. I think that's probably the most likely scenario if Jalen Smith. So I think the most likely scenario is Jalen Smith plays. If he doesn't play, it's probably Tice coming in. And then, I mean, I don't know what the hell this Miles Turner thing is about. It's so annoying. But yeah, could expect pretty big minutes.
You think it's very, very extremely unlikely that Miles Turner plays, right?
I think so. Yeah, it's just, I mean, this is outrageous. Like, what are they doing here? But I can maybe there's a happy birthday for somebody that I could look into while we do the next one.
Yeah, super frustrating. If they were without Jalen Smith and Miles Turner, do you think they'd let Isaiah Jackson just go as much as he can handle? Because we've seen when they have both of them together, they're both mid-20s. They share a 48-minute role together. There's no development needed on Daniel Tice. They don't need to see more from him. Isaiah Jackson does have foul issues, conditioning issues that often can keep his minutes kind of in check as well. But do you think if they were without both those guys, we could see Isaiah Jackson tick towards 30 minutes tonight? Okay,
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, no starter jersey news for me today, so that's sad. But well, we know he's going to start. It's just a matter of I wanted to see if they have like a second unit jersey, so I was hoping I'd find something there. But so yeah, if priority of playing, obviously Jackson 1, Jalen Smith 2, Tice 3, and Miles Turner 4.
And you're saying we know Jackson is going to start because they've been alternating Jackson and Jalen Smith starting, and Jalen started last time, right? Okay.
Yep.
All right, let's move to Charlotte and Houston. On the Charlotte side, LaMelo, Gordon Hayward, Cody Martin, Kelly Oubre, Terry Rozier, PJ Washington, all listed out. Dennis Smith Jr. listed questionable. He was questionable last game, was unable to go. Mark Williams listed probable with a left ankle sprain. Where are we at in the Mark Williams, Nick Richards, Kai Jones rotation? And what does that mean for tonight against Houston?
Yeah, it's Kai Jones' turn to sit. We've seen Kai Jones play both 4-5. We saw him when it was his turn to sit back when PJ Washington went down. He came in when it was out of turn. And then we thought that, okay, maybe this whole thing is over. And it wasn't. So now we're on the other side of this thing. Is it done? Are they just going to play Xavier Sneed? We saw Xavier Sneed get, I think, a contract boost. Kobe Simmons as well. So I think they're going to play Sneed a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised to see Kai Jones just sit today. We're not going to I haven't looked at minutes yet, but we're not going to project it like that just because I think we can't do that. But we're going to expect Mark Williams back. We saw him roll his ankle, kind of minor. He got the P tag, got downgraded to doubtful and missed, which was his turn to sit. So I think that's kind of why they downgraded him. So Mark Williams should start. Nick Richards behind him for probably the full 48, I would say. And then it's a matter of if Kai Jones is going to play. And I kind of think he doesn't, honestly, just based on how Clifford's been playing this out. Don't have a great read on Dennis Smith Jr. Been getting this Q tag, and really sounds like he has no chance to play. Oh yeah, okay. So Kevin Durant's not going to play in this. Shams is reporting stuff. So yeah, should be the same starting lineup. We've seen huge minutes out of Theo Maledon. Bryce McGowan. Svi's been playing its own. Really good matchup for Svi against the Rockets. Go a lot of jump shooting. JT Thor's played a bunch, and then we mentioned Mark Williams.
If Dennis Smith Jr. were to play Theo Maledon back to the bench in that situation, or do you think it's Bryce McGowan's back to the bench? Theo? Yeah,
it would be Theo. We saw prior to the injury, literally a minute before, right? Like that game.
Yep.
What against Dallas? They basically ruled him out a minute before, and that was supposed to be McGowan's. So I would expect Theo off the bench, despite how he's had this ridiculous role.
Okay, let's move to the Houston side of that game. Jayshawn Tate listed out. I don't think anything really to talk about here. And on 13 games, we can kind of move forward. So we'll just skip past them. We don't have any questionable tags or anything.
Yeah, really good matchup for the Rockets in the spot.
Yep. All right, let's move to Miami and Washington. Miami, we listed them in the teams that have some incentives to play, but it's the second night of a back-to-back for them. Their chances of getting elevated into the sixth spot are very slim. They need Brooklyn to lose out, and they need to win out. Brooklyn's playing a team potentially in Orlando that's resting a lot of players. We'll get to that in a bit. But Miami on their injury report listed Bam Adebayo out, Jimmy Butler out, Nikola Jovic out, Kyle Lowry out, and then questionable tags on Max Strus, Kevin Love, and Tyler Hero. it's interesting that Tyler Hero and Kevin Love and Max Strus all get questionable tags when they already made the distinction on Bam, Jimmy, and Lowry. But Bam, Jimmy, and Lowry are of a different mold. Tyler Hero, a lot younger player. Max Strus, more of a role player. Kevin Love still trying to find his footing with the Miami Heat. Do you think these are real questionable tags or fake questionable tags? We've had this discussion around the Miami Heat all season long. What are your expectations for who's available tonight?
I think we're determining the situation and they're not injured. Kevin Love's most recent injury was a rib injury, and as far as I know, he didn't have anything. So oh look, he had a rib injury like 3 weeks ago. Let's list him with that. So that's kind of how I read this situation, but don't have a read on how they're going to play it because they're playing for something, so maybe they are trying to play those dudes. So I kind of am expecting them in. So starting lineup probably going to be Gabe, Hero, Strus. I think Haywood Highsmith would start. It might be Caleb Martin too. Actually, yeah, probably Caleb. I guess it would depend on if Hero and Love are sitting. I would kind of think it's Highsmith. If they're playing, it might be Caleb. Just based on how they're going to approach this game, right?
Right.
And then I'm pretty confident that Cody Zeller is going to be starting here. We saw him start over the weekend, played awesome. In his start, he picked up a huge role, like lit up every prop on him. But yeah, so we'll kind of see. But don't have a great read on how they're going to play with Hero and Love. So
you're mentioning how it impacts Caleb Martin or Highsmith. Would the same conversation not extend to your 7 in Zeller? Like if they're kind of resting everybody, do you think? Okay, you don't think they're going to?
I don't think so. I mean, Cody Zeller wasn't even in rotation the last game, so I think it would be.
Yeah,
I think he's kind of fine regardless.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just thinking about like young guys' development. Like if they're turning the page on that, obviously Cody Zeller's probably not with the Heat next year. Your 7 certainly is. Okay. Washington side of things in that game, again, nothing super big to talk about here, so we'll go pretty quickly. But out tags for Deni Avdija, Bradley Beal, Kyle Kuzma, Kristaps Porzingis, and Monty Morris. The notable exception is DeLon Wright, who was out last game, not listed on the injury report tonight. What do you make of that? Because we've seen a lot of value for the Washington guards of late with Goodwin, Davis, and Nunn all having big games without DeLon Wright the last 2 games.
Yeah, it would definitely be an antenna up situation if he's not starting. I'm expecting him to start and probably have a pretty big role. I don't think this is going to affect Johnny Davis, who is really their prize piece, obviously, high draft pick for them. So he should have a pretty big role. Shots should still be there. We know DeLon doesn't shoot that much. So pretty good role for him, which could, moving him down, could cut down a little bit of Kendrick Nunn. Maybe they play a little bit smaller. Maybe Quentin Jackson goes away. He's playing kind of a 3-4 for them. But yeah, I think DeLon starts and cuts down some value, but I don't think Davis is going to be affected.
Yeah, Kendrick Nunn seems like the player most likely to be impacted there because his minutes, even though he's gotten a lot of shots up and he's been effective, his minutes have not been great. It has not looked like they're prioritizing him. It has looked like they're prioritizing Goodwin and Davis especially. So DeLon Wright would impact Kendrick Nunn probably the most there. Jordan Goodwin the next most, and probably not Johnny Davis at all. But as you said, a 10 is up if DeLon Wright is not starting. Okay, let's move to Orlando and Brooklyn. On the Brooklyn side, fairly straightforward here. We can move quickly over them. Dorian Smith listed available. Ben Simmons out. They're going to run their normal rotation. They're going to look to get this win. We've said all week long, them getting the 6th seed is so important to them because it's the only way they're guaranteed getting in the playoffs. Because they are on par with the Miami, Atlanta, Toronto, Chicago kind of group. And if they get in the play-in, things could go bad. It's important to get that playoff gate for Brooklyn with everything they've been through this year. Orlando, though, the Orlando hokey pokey has been really, really frustrating for us. We have talked that Orlando has talked about prioritizing like playing well towards the end of the season. Well, yesterday they took a turn on that one because they sat everybody: Paolo Banchero, Markelle Fultz, Franz Wagner, Wendell Carter Jr. They were all listed out. Gary Harris. They were all listed out on the injury report yesterday. Cole Anthony was not listed and did not play, which you were concerned about. There was then a report that he was going to have his normal role off the bench. Does not play. So today on the injury report, they start out with the same filing that they ended with last night with all those guys out. And then they update it to Paolo Banchero questionable, Markel Fultz questionable, Gary Harris questionable, Wendell Carter Jr. questionable, Franz Wagner questionable, Mo Wagner out. And then they updated again to Wendell Carter Jr. out. So, and Jay Scrub out. So we've got Mo Wagner out, Wendell Carter Jr. out, Jonathan Isaac out, Jay Scrub out. Still Cole Anthony nowhere to be listed on the injury report in any way, shape, or form, which is just maddening. We saw Jalen Suggs have a big role last night, but again, really big role for Jalen Suggs. Look at those minutes. 24 minutes. That's not a team trying to win a game. So, eyes up, or antennas up for Orlando in intentionally trying to lose the game here tonight. What are your expectations for how they approach things?
I can't believe none of the reporters asked him about Cole Anthony. I was listening to the presser and I was like, dude, how do you not ask that question, man? Like some people, like the questions that I heard, I was like, God, I don't know. I'm not going to say anything else, but I don't know, man. I don't know. This is bullshit. Like, sorry for cursing, but we get the report last night. Everyone out, and they've done this before. It was an Isaac back-to-back like a month and a half ago, and we're like, "What? Jonathan Isaac's not listed? What the hell?" Because they filed, and then they pulled him back. Like, they need to work on their communication there because clearly the person who files at night and the person who files in the morning, they're not getting the same information. I don't even care anymore, man. I guess they're gonna sit guys. I honestly don't even know. The coach doesn't know. The PR people don't know. So how can we know?
Yeah. So the other part about this, I guess, that I would ask is, do you think it's? Is there any situation that we get partial where some guys sit and other guys start? Because the Wendell Carter Jr. going out while all these other guys stayed questionable was interesting to me, just in the sense that are these real injuries that they're evaluating? Like what's going on here? And if we get partial, then it's really hard to talk about. If we get everybody out, it's easier to talk about.
So I think one thing that played into this, and if you want to defend them, because if you remember yesterday, it was a pretty late filing for listing those guys out.
Yep.
So I think what may have swayed them was the Cavs sitting everyone. If you want to defend them, which I'm not, which I should probably just stop talking. But I think that was probably part of it. I think, oh no, they're sitting everyone. We're incentivized to lose, so they're not playing against real NBA players anyway. Sorry, Cedi Osman or Rubio. Like, let's just sit them out. We got a back-to-back. Like, you can kind of talk through it. So I kind of think, despite my frustration, they're gonna probably play the people that are listed as questionable.
Okay. If these guys end up playing, we know they're without Wendell Carter Jr. and they're without Mo Wagner. So those have been two options that they've gone to in the starting lineup. We saw Bol start yesterday next to Mo Wagner. Would Bol be the person that goes back into that starting lineup and get some of what we saw earlier in the season? Or Goga Batadze, who's played very well for them, does he get kind of ascended into the starting lineup? What are your thoughts there?
I don't think Bol. We saw him have a pretty big role in yesterday. So I think they're going to play him. We talked about this on the DFS show that like they were playing this way. We thought to maybe prioritize Bol, and they did. So I think that makes sense. Why not play him more? Obviously, he's big enough. He had a dunk where he was literally had his toes on the floor. He's a center. He's a kind of a wing in a center's body. So I think he would start at center.
I think he's a center in a wing's body, but because I think a center's body is a little thicker than the body he's got.
Center's height, I should say.
Yeah. All right. So stay tuned for more on Orlando. Atlanta and Philadelphia. This one on the Atlanta side, a little bit more straightforward tonight. You may remember over the last few days, last few games that they've had, Trae Young has been out and then questionable. Bogdanović has been questionable when Trae Young was questionable, and then he was ruled out when Trae Young was in. And in all those instances, DeAndre Hunter was out. Well, the injury report is very straightforward today. Just DeAndre Hunter questionable tag. It's a legitimate injury that he's dealing with on the muscle strain side. Do you have any notes or information on his availability? It is an important game as Atlanta looks to pursue locking up the 8th spot and avoid dropping to that 9-10 where you need to win 2 games to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, bone bruise to his knee. Guy who's had a lot of knee injuries. He got the PR release on his injury. That's usually a bad sign. So leaning out, I haven't looked at minutes, but I assume we're going to have him in just because it's what we're supposed to do. But I think he could definitely miss this one. Would expect Bogdan to start, I think. AJ Griffin played really awesome in the last game. Is my only kind of hesitation there, but expecting him to sit. Obviously, Trey, illness, flag plant for me, had a pretty nice game with 25 and 16 dimes, expecting a pretty big role. And, Philly, we'll talk about them in a second. But and Atlanta wants to win this game. They're going to go down fighting. Obviously, the 8-9 gap is really, really important. So I think they're going to do all they can until it's 100%.
Yeah, and I'm not sure of the tiebreaker situation that they have versus Toronto. I'm looking into it really quickly here. It looks like they split the first 2 games against. They're up in the series on Toronto 2-1. So they have the tiebreaker on Toronto. Mm-hmm. So that means while they're up a game now, their magic number is then 2 to clinch the 8th spot. They cannot get to the 7th spot because they are behind Miami currently, and Miami has the tiebreaker over them. I know this because of my Hawks divisional futures. So I think you're going to see all out from the Hawks here tonight. See if they could potentially clinch that tonight, right? Toronto's playing a Boston team that we'll get to in a second. Philadelphia side of this, Philadelphia's super locked into their positioning. They were locked in yesterday. They played some of their guys yesterday. They did not look like a team that was focused on the regular season. They looked awful yesterday against the Heat. The defense was just utterly atrocious. You can see Embiid had an underwhelming 21-6 in 2 game. Nobody really showed up there. Now tonight, second night of back-to-back, listed out Joel Embiid, James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, PJ Tucker, doubtful tag on D'Anthony Melton, questionable tags on Tobias Harris and Jaden Springer, who was one of their better players on their G League championship. So we're going to see a lot of the secondary players from Philadelphia tonight. What do you expect the starting lineup to look like? And do you expect Tobias Harris to play? Because he's the one name that's a little bit strange to see him on the injury report here.
Bulls are tanking, by the way. We got DeMar and Levine out. I'll talk about that in a second. Mac McClung season. Are we going to get some Mac McClung in action? He was out yesterday, got upgraded to available today, so we could see him. But they're probably sitting Tobias, right? And should note, D'Anthony Melton got ruled out during the game for a calf. That's a little concerning to me. Could have been precautionary, but didn't like seeing that for your guy. So expecting a starting lineup of, I think Shake for sure is starting. I think Jalen McDaniels is for sure starting. I think Paul Reed is for sure starting. I would lean Daniel House starting, and I would, Tobias, we'll see if he's out. Then maybe they go Cork and then we're a little bit smaller. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know if Tobias is has a games played thing or anything, but it makes kind of no sense to play him. So we'll see. But definitely expecting a really big roll out of Shake. I'm sure he'll be probably one of the better DFS plays, assuming he's cheap today.
Yeah, I'm sure he's cheap. It's unlikely they were the sites were super prepared for this. Tobias has played 74 games on the season. There could be something with him playing 75 games or something like that. That as we've seen, there's some weird contract stuff like Drew Holiday needed to play 67 games. So there's some weird stuff that comes up with these. But okay, let's move on to the Boston-Toronto game. Boston. Last game, they had a back-to-back last set. They alternated Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum sitting. Neither of the Jays are on the injury report tonight. On the injury report, Derek White, Marcus Smart, Peyton Pritchard, Malcolm Brogdon. If you're a guard, you're on the injury report as questionable for Boston tonight. They have nothing to play for in terms of their playoff seeding or anything like that tonight. It is interesting that neither Jaylen or Jason are on the injury report. I have theorized that they might care. They made sure they had one available. They played Derek White 40 minutes. They played Time Lord 31 minutes against this Toronto team. That's who they're playing again tonight. My theory is maybe they do care if Toronto is in that 8 spot and could potentially be a matchup. Maybe they prefer it to be Atlanta or Miami. Still, Miami's, tough, but Atlanta, I think most people view as a softer opponent than Toronto. So maybe they care for that reason. But what are your thoughts on all these questionable tags for the guards for Boston tonight?
Well, I got news for you. Jaylen Brown just got ruled out. So that's
okay. There we go.
So that puts a hole in your theory.
Yep.
I don't know.
Theory eliminated.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a read on the situation. It feels like they're gonna. I mean, Brogdon is playing a bunch. There is a lot of talk of him making a gun. Yeah, and White. A lot of questions from the media about Brogdon for 6-man. Maybe that's part of the situation here. Obviously, Brogdon was, managed early in the year like a ton. But now they're playing in big minutes. So I kind of lean that they sit these dudes out.
Yeah. I think, who do you think is most likely to play of these questionable tags? I kind of think it's Smart. Pritchard is obviously the most likely, but
I would say
I think
White,
Smart would be
honestly,
next most
first.
likely. Okay.
Smart has a pinched
My
nerve,
thought
pinched
on
nerve in
that,
his neck.
okay. My thought on White is just
Hero's out
simply
now,
like
too.
he played both ends of the back-to-back and played 40 plus minutes and like probably needs time off. But yeah, if all three sit, what are we looking at for the Celtics backcourt tonight?
I don't know. Without Brown now, JD Davidson season, I guess. If everyone's out, it would be Pritchard if he's in. Yeah, and he'd probably
Pritchard
play
would probably have to play a lot, right?
Yeah. But yeah, he's had a pretty significant injury that's kept him out. So we'll see. But they're probably going to put JD Davidson in the rotation here today.
Yeah. Maybe Justin Champagnie.
Oh yeah, yep.
Things are a little bit thin for Boston tonight. So if they're without all these guards, we could see some value here. It's a little tricky. Raptors are a pretty good defensive team and have a lot of motivation to play for. Speaking of the Raptors, no injuries notable on them. Jeff Doughton is like out of two-way, right up against it on the two-way, so he's out. But they have no Gary Trent on the injury report anymore, so they're fully healthy. I think we can scoot past them. Memphis and Milwaukee. On the Milwaukee side, they still have some incentive. Their magic number to clinch the number 2 seed is 1, so they need 1 win or 1 Kings loss to get that number 2 seed. On their injury report today, no Zaire Williams, no Jake LaRavia, no Brandon Clark, no Steven Adams. Those are all been expected injury situations, and doubtful for Santi Aldama, who got hurt last game. So it looks like a full go for Memphis tonight. They're playing a Milwaukee team that we'll get to, has very few of their guys. So it looks like they're trying to wrap this up tonight, maybe rest on Sunday. What are your thoughts on Memphis tonight?
Yeah, not too much to say here. The question would be, are they going to run 9 or 10? We saw Kenny Lofton Jr. pick up some pretty heavy minutes last game with the Santi injury on top of Xavier Tillman, I guess, sort of resting. He should be back. So we know their starting lineup. We know it's going to be John Morant, Desmond Bane, Dylan Brooks, Jaren Jackson, and Xavier Tillman. The bench unit for sure will be David Roddy. Conchar, feel pretty good about him. Tyus Jones. And then, probably, I guess they probably put Lofton in there for minutes with Santi out, and maybe they bring someone else in. But they're playing. They want to get the 2 seed. It feels like. So I think minutes should be pretty big against backups. So very much in the jaw cover boy. Going out with a Grizzly to end my regular season. But it should be a pretty good spot for him.
All right, let's move to the Milwaukee side, where they just have a ton of out tags. Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez, Drew Holiday, Pat Connaughton, Grayson Allen, Giannis Antetokounmpo. So who's left? What do we expect to the starting lineup for Milwaukee to look like tonight?
Yeah, so one other question is this Joe Ingles thing. We saw him be a fake active last time, so that would be kind of antenna up if he's sitting out. I am expecting him to start, so I'm expecting a starting lineup of Javon Carter, Wesley Matthews, Joe Ingles, Jay Crowder, and Bobby Portis, with Goran Dragic being kind of the backup point guard. Javon could play a lot here. And then it probably motion. At first I was like, it's probably Beauchamp for the wing defender role. But I don't know. I feel like they're going to start Ingles. I could be wrong. Because I honestly think that they want to kind of ramp him up a little bit with this Middleton injury, with Grayson Allen down, with Pat Connaughton down. Yeah. I mean, they need to see what Joe Ingles has. So I think that's kind of my reasoning there. But, they're sitting out their starters. Should be some value here for sure.
Yeah, the other reasoning could be they're down all those guys. Maybe they protect Joe Ingles. So we'll see. Yeah. I think the starting lineup is a good indicator there. And also should note, we've seen like really big performances of late from Emmanuel Quickley, from Malcolm Brogdon, and from Bobby Portis. Those 3 guys are the 3 guys in the running for the 6th man of the year. I sort of wonder, because you notice Bobby Portis is not listed on that report. I sort of wonder if these guys at the end of the year aren't trying to juice some of their numbers in these situations. Now, Bobby's a starting caliber player at the NBA level, and will get an opportunity to be the lead usage dog tonight for Milwaukee. So something to note there. There might be some incentive for individuals in some of these games. Let's move to New Orleans and the Knicks. On the New Orleans side, We got the Zion Williamson update that, best case scenario is he's practicing during the first round of the playoffs. So it sounds like we are not seeing Zion Williamson this year, most likely. They're still without him, Jose Alvarado, and EJ Liddell, of course. So nothing new on the injury report there. Full go for the Pelicans from a motivation perspective, from a seeding perspective. They've worked themselves into the 8th spot, currently tied with the Lakers for the 7th spot, 1 game out of the 5th spot. So they can move a lot. They have control over their own destiny here because they also play Minnesota, the last game of the season, who's behind them in the 9th spot. So all systems go for New Orleans tonight. I don't think there's much to cover there. Do you have anything to add?
I do not.
Okay. Knicks side. Knicks last game, they ruled out Jalen Brunson pretty early, Julius Randle pretty early. We had that RJ Barrett questionable tag. I kept staring at it all day saying, like, Knicks, come on. Like, this is really annoying. RJ Barrett gets ruled out before the game. I had some concerns on if they would take the foot off the gas in terms of their approach. I felt really good about Obi Toppin playing a ton, but I wasn't sure if Quickly and Grimes and Hart and Mitch would all play huge minutes. I was wrong on that. 43 for Grimes, 43 for Toppin, 40 for Quickly, 37 for Josh Hart. On tonight's injury report, they're without Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson, and they just ruled out at the 2:30 mark Mitch Robinson for rest. RJ Barrett has a questionable tag that I believe has still not been updated, so it's still questionable. With Mitch Robinson getting ruled out for rest, does it change the tone on how they approach any of these other guys tonight? What are your thoughts for the Knicks? Because obviously it's one of these situations where the guys are incredible values. They had 3 guys score over 30 points last game. Granted, it was against the Pacers. It'll be different tonight against a team that's actually trying. But these guys are great values, given Tibbs is willing to play these guys 40 minutes. Do things change tonight if they're resting Mitchell Robinson?
I don't think so. We saw Mitch have a fall. If you remember, if you watched the game, I was like, oh, he made a big steal. It was his last steal of the game, and his 9th stock, and he went into the stand. So I think the medical people were like, oh my god, we can't put him out there with nothing on the line. So that's my thought process there. Mitch has been injured at times, so I think they're okay. A little bit of risk, a little bit more risk, I think, than last time, but I think they're in a pretty good spot. I kind of think Jericho Sims starts. We kind of saw this spot. I think they've been kind of making cases for him to start here, so I'd expect that to happen. Could be wrong. They could really beef up Hartenstein's minutes here. Obviously, IQ, Grimes, and Toppin all going ham. Fun fact, these two teams facing off, the Pelicans and the Knicks, both had 3 30-point scorers in their last game played. CJ McCollum, Trey Murphy, and Herb Jones, career high 35. But a little bit of risk, but I think I feel pretty good about those main dudes starting, and should be a ton of Obi. We'll see about RJ. Maybe he's back. Obviously, that would put quite a pin in some of the upside here. It would obviously send Josh Hart to the bench.
Yeah, and I still feel really good of Obi's minutes being really solid regardless, because he's not he's not a guy they're relying on heavily in the playoffs, right? Like if Julius Randle is still unable to go, they'll play him the token starter role. The other guys I'm mildly concerned about, but if there were any concerns at all on this front, they wouldn't be playing these guys 43 minutes. So it seems like it's full go for the Knicks. All right, Chicago and Dallas. You mentioned we got news on Chicago on the 2:30 injury report. Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Patrick Beverley, all listed out. Alex Caruso questionable. Like, get out of here with this questionable tag on Alex Caruso. You're not gonna play. You're not gonna play Alex Caruso if you're not playing these other guys. So what do we expect to see from the Bulls tonight?
So we know we're gonna see Io. We're gonna see a lot of Kobe White. Kobe White might be the best player in the slate. He's been playing awesome right now. So I'm expecting those guys to start. Looks like Vooch is going to play. Certainly Patrick Williams. Terry season, I guess, for the 5th starter. I think that makes sense for an extra wing. So they'll probably play. But I think Kobe's going to play a ton. I think Io will play stupid minutes as well, so those guys can be certainly viable after pretty quiet performances against a pretty bad Dallas team. It's going to be even worse now. Actually, defensively they may be better, but a lot of value here.
Yeah, and I would expect Carlick Jones to have a nice roll off the bench. He was the G League's leading scorer this year. I'm the one throwing G League stats out now.
It's you. You're most
I'm the captain now. All right, let's move to Dallas. Dallas, which is the weirdest injury report of the day. No Josh Green, no Tim Hardaway Jr., no Kyrie Irving, no Maxi Kleber, no Christian Wood. Josh Green and Christian Wood are listed for rest, and Kyrie Irving is listed for injury recovery, as is Maxi Kleber. These are really strange tags when you still have life to get into the playoffs.
Oh my God.
All that along with a probable tag on Luka Doncic, which is the strangest of the whole thing. Because why, if you're trying to lose the game, why would you play Luka at all? So you did some digging trying to find if there were any sort of incentives around Luka. He's already played 65 games this year. So sometimes incentives are around round numbers or fun numbers that end in 5. I thought that would be the case. I can't figure this one out. You've said to be leery of probable tags this time of the year. What are your thoughts on this Luka Doncic probable tag?
Yeah, so you mentioned the Drew Holiday note, 67 games played to hit a rebounding bonus that he had. Maybe there's something in there that I don't know about. That's from Bobby Marks and the Drew tag. So the only thing that we have that we can lean on here, it's I feel Slovenia night in Dallas tonight. All of you probably know he's a Slovenian man, a quite famous one. Maybe not the famous man or woman in America, but he's the most famous man, I would say, and he's Slovenian. So he that may be it. So are we going to get a Draymond Green situation? Are we going to get anything? Like, we don't know. So we're baking in some risk here, as you kind of mentioned there. You're tanking this game and you're playing your best player. That's like so counterintuitive. So I don't know. I'm expecting shenanigans here. It looks like they're just shutting this thing down. So it's certainly going to be Jaden Hardy season, probably playing like 38, 39, 40 minutes here. I advised Adam Schefter to pick him up today following that news. So rooting for Luka to sit. But so who else we got here? So we'll have, I guess Luka starts. And then they got THJ would be, who would be in THJ's spot? I guess it'd be Holiday, right? Yeah. So it'd be Luka, Hardy, Holiday, Bullock's not listed, and then Dwight Powell. With it's crazy, no Green, no Wood. So we'll see. They actually called up McKinley Wright. He was listed out earlier today, got upgraded to available, so he'll be playing. And then a little bit of Frank Ntilikina as well.
Some Theo Pinson, some JaVale McGee tonight. We'll probably see the whole kit and caboodle for Dallas tonight. But the Luka probable tag is suspicious, to say the least. All right, Golden State and Sacramento. On the Golden State side of things, they have clear motivation, again, trying to win their final 2 games to stay out of the play-in. They have Andrew Wiggins listed out for return to competition reconditioning, and Andre Iguodala and Ryan Rollins listed out as well. But generally straightforward for Golden State. I don't think we need to spend any time there unless you have any other comments to add. Okay.
I was curious to see who starts. My only thing. I just want to see who starts. If we saw Dante DiVincenzo come off the bench, maybe they're grooming him for that role here. That's my only thing. I think they're going to start him now.
Okay. Let's move to Sacramento, where everybody's questionable. Matthew Dellavedova is out, but the questionable tags: De'Aaron Fox, Kevin Huerter, Trey Lyles, Davion Mitchell, Malik Monk, Keegan Murray, Domantas Sabonis. That is basically their whole starting lineup, with the exception of one man, Harrison Barnes. We will get to that in a second on Harrison Barnes. But this entire questionable tag for the Kings, as we alluded to before, their situation is they need to win out and have Memphis lose out for them to advance to the 2nd seed. It sounds like if Memphis is in control of this game, you could see a situation where they pull the plug. It also seems like you could see a situation where if the game is tight, you could get the plug pulled mid-game on you with these Sacramento guys as well. Like, it seems like a situation where, okay, Memphis wins at the buzzer in their earlier game and Sacramento gets notified and these guys only play a half or something like that. So the situation is, if you see all these guys starting, be careful. You can't play the main guys in DFS tonight. If you see them not starting, then what do you think it would look like, assuming Harrison Barnes, who, by the way, Harrison Barnes has not missed a game in many years. It seems like he's just preserving a streak. Last year, he played 13 minutes in the season finale to preserve a streak. So it sounds like that's probably what is happening again tonight. who would the players be that would benefit and potentially be DFS viable if they mass rested everybody with the exception of Harrison Barnes?
Yeah, he is not lined. I just double checked. That would be there. That would be Chris Lafagas is always frowning upon books and thinking they're making mistakes. That would be a colossal mistake if they lined Harrison Barnes. So yeah, you laid all that out nicely. So who's left? Shout out to me digging through garbage time stats and digging through ball handling stats. PJ Dozier's been the lead ball handler in garbage time, so he would probably be the point guard here. Expecting Terrence Davis to be the 2, Kessler Edwards to be the 3, Harrison Barnes starting at the 4, and then possibly pulling a Draymond Green / Drew Holiday-esque kind of a foul to keep the streak going. And leaning Alex Len over the Rashawn Holmes, Chimezi Metu, and Nemias Keita types, and then those guys I mentioned, and they also have Keon Ellis as a kind of a combo guard who plays in the G League for most of his minutes with the Stockton Kings. So they still have full rotation if they decide to sit everyone out. Not Harrison Barnes would actually be 9, so they'd play pretty big, and that would lead to quite a bit of minutes for PJ Dozier and Terrence Davis. We know Terrence Davis could fill it up, so he's a guy who could be really really attractive. But yeah, the scoreboard watching is something. This is it's too bad that game is 2 hours later.
Well, the injury report here, I mean, in terms of guards, it's Dellavedova's already out. Davion Mitchell's questionable. Malik Monk's questionable. De'Aaron Fox is questionable. You'd be down to PJ Dozier, Terrence Davis, Keon Ellis as like the only 3 guards left, right? And then in the wings bucket, you'd have just Kessler Edwards and Harrison Barnes, right? And then you're talking about like you can play Metu at the 4, so they can get away with that. But yeah, there's a ton of minutes for Terrence Davis and PJ Dozier and Keon Ellis just because they don't have guard / wing options available, and Kessler Edwards too. So it could be a situation where there's value to be had here. Okay, let's move to the Lakers and Phoenix, the last game of the night. Lakers, plenty of motivation here. They have questionable tags on Anthony Davis and LeBron James. They played both ends of the back-to-back. We thought it was very surprising to play both ends of the back-to-back. They predictably lost to the Clippers and then ran the minutes up on these guys as they played just close enough to keep the minutes elevated. D'Angelo Russell listed probable tonight. What's your expectation on these questionable tags for the Lakers star duo?
They're fake. They came out of the game fine. They obviously care a ton about this game. I mean, the Suns, who are resting people, will talk about that. The Lakers need this game like really, really badly. So expecting pretty full minutes. And I can't. What a bad outcome. You go in there, they play overtime the game before, and they're all LeBron's complaining, Ham's complaining, they're all complaining about the schedule. Dude, just come on, this game's not that important. I thought that was so stupid, but anyways, expecting those guys to go pretty full.
Okay, Phoenix on the second night of back-to-back has not officially filed on the injury report, but we got updates. Okay, they did update the filing. Okay, at 2:30 they had not filed, so they've updated the filing on 2:30 late here. We got the updates from Underdog. They have ruled out Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, TJ Warren, all ruled out. Any other injury notes? Because I'm still not seeing anything on the actual 2:30 injury report.
They filed it right after the official 2:30. Yeah, they put it in right after. Okay. So it'll be on the 3:30, but their PR put it out. So we're gonna get campaign, right? I would lean Bismack getting the start to guard AD, probably Sham at Terrence Ross. I think those are 3 of the 4, and then Josh Okogie's still there, so that's kind of where I'm leaning. It might be actually Craig over Ross to keep Ross in kind of the microwave 6-man role. I have to think through this more. I haven't thought it through yet, but I think that's kind of where I'm leaning. Just thinking it through really quick. I think I would. LeBron, that's pretty big actually. So I think it would be Craig. Craig would get LeBron. Okogie would be the on-ball defender against. I think that makes more sense. Yeah. So I would lean it being Cam, Landry Shamet, Craig, Okogie, and then Bismack Biyombo. Bench unit being a lot of Landale off the bench. Ish Wainwright probably back in the rotation. Mentioned Terrence Ross. And I think Saban Lee still has his two-way stuff, and they also have Damian Lee as well. So they got plenty of depth.
They have a lot of bodies.
We expect a pretty good amount of pretty amount of depth. Not too much upside. There's way more upside in the Kings guys, I would say, in this spot.
Yeah, Okogie and Craig haven't played huge minutes of late, but they are pieces of the playoff rotation. Would there be any concern that those guys would be managed in any sort of way tonight? Because they, as you alluded to, they do have plenty of depth.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, they're not great offensive players anyway, so I just wouldn't even bother there. But definitely some concern on the minutes.
Okay. That'll do it. We got through it under an hour. Big upset for us to get through this in under an hour. Going to the 2-man booth certainly helps. So as before we get out of here, as always, support the people who are supporting us. The show is brought to you by our good friends at Underdog Fantasy. If they have daily NBA snake drafts for money running edition, many formats of NFL offseason basketball contests, still running for huge prizes. If you're playing NBA Pick'em, in-season subscribers can use our tool to compare ETR projections to their fantasy Pick'em games. If you haven't signed up for Underdog yet, use promo code ETR for a matching deposit bonus up to $100. That's promo code ETR at underdogfantasy.com. If you're going to play in the dance, that NBA playoff best ball tournament, yesterday, myself, Mike Gallagher, and Chris Lafakis recorded a podcast on the Established Run NBA podcast feed. Get that wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, so on and so forth. That is a must listen if you are going to play in the dance. We covered all the different strategy angles, breaking down the contest, the advance rates, how to approach the contest specifically with strategy based on different picks early and late, how to evaluate the Eastern Conference versus the Western Conference in terms of the approach. We covered it all. So it's a free podcast. If you're going to play dance,
shouldn't be free.
It shouldn't be. It should be behind a paywall. But if you're going to play the dance, you should listen to that podcast. You could probably draft on that, perhaps without even the help of our rankings. Though the help of our rankings, which are behind the paywall, can be very, very helpful for late round selections and whatnot. But it's a really interesting tournament. It's a really interesting strategy and game to play. The podcast lays it out how to approach it. So make sure to listen to that if you're playing the dance. We recommend you do. All right. Behind the paywall today at 5 o'clock Eastern time, myself and Gary Hartman will be breaking down this 13-game slate, the good chalk, the bad chalk, the contrarian pivots, and of course the flag plants. Join us behind the paywall at 5 o'clock Eastern tonight for our last episode of Establish a Show this regular season. Establish a Show will be ongoing during the playoffs as regularly scheduled. Programming note on this show, reminder, as I said on the intro, we will be not doing this show next week during the play-in games. We will resume broadcasting this show the following week. So April 17th, we will be back on the air talking playoffs and injuries and the analysis and information you need to know while evaluating that injury report. As always, if you're uninterested in giving us your hard-earned dollars and subscribing to Establish Run products, give us your hard-earned clicks. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, get notifications whenever we go live. And of course, smash that like button and help feed the algorithm. You help feed the algorithm, it helps feed our families. We keep feeding you the injury analysis and information you need to make your DFS lineups, your prop bets, your spread bets. Some great nuggets in here for the people that listen today. Hopefully sets you up to be able to react to news and make some of those prop bets, take advantage of some stale lines, so on and so forth. So smash that
Harrison
like button,
Barnes.
feed that algorithm. Yeah, feed that algorithm. Nom, 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 nom. Enjoy your weekend. See you on April 7th.